Hello, you may have heard about real estate investment, and I know a lot of people talk about this on the internet and everywhere. But one thing that you have not really learned is how you go about this real estate investment. And there are a lot of videos out there giving a lot of promises about real estate investment. It's one difficult part, but I just want to talk a little bit of one option that non very rich people can start with in terms of starting from a very small amount of investment and they build that into portfolio. And one of that is what might popularly be called the um, auctions. Some of the auctions are usually done by either government or banks and others. And there's also called the lien certificate or the tax lien certificate or tax 6D. So some of these are properties that are sold by councils as a result of the property owners not paying their taxes, and they basically need to get rid of all these properties. And sometimes these are also abandoned properties that is not occupied. Some of them could be occupied, but the occupied could be squatters. People just live in the property, but it's not theirs. So there are various things that goes with those kind of properties. They are not properties to entirely stay away from, but at the same time, they are properties that require some due diligence. Some of them that I want to talk about are the ones you could see right here on screen that is listed by Civic Socks. So in the Civic Socks is popularly used in the state of Louisiana, and you may also find some other websites that are used for property. As you could see from this website, this property right here, which is 906 and Street, basically you could see where it started from in terms of the auction, started from 5,460. Usually when you start the option, they will sometimes ask you to pay some certain amount of money, which is about $850. And basically, this could be used to provide you some other information that may be related to the property. As you've seen, it's very important you basically do a little bit of check on the property, the location, and also the overall quality of the property as well. For example, I may want to look at the Google views about this property. So when I copy this and I take it to Google search and I search for that on Google, I basically look at the street view, and that gives me some little bit of information about the environment where this property is located. Sometimes these are properties that you may want to live in, or these are property you want to buy as an investment. You literally want to sell this property in as well. So when you look around this kind of environment, it seems to be property that may be a little bit away from the city, and you probably don't want to go into this kind of investment. Or it might be property that is in a strategic location that could actually be a very potential investment in the long term. So having a quick look at the Google and looking at the street view is a good way to get started. You may also want to take a look at the property real estate website. For example, you look at the Redfin or Zillow. That may also provide you some useful information about this property. For instance, you could see this property in Louisiana, and basically, if you look at the assets, the tax assets for this property is 3,400. The rent estimate is 879 and so on. So basically, the Zillow doesn't have any Z estimate for this property. It's none. And let's look at Redfin. If we look at Redfin, we might have some information about estimate for this property. Is between $20,000 to $24,000 for the Zillow estimate. So it's always good to get started by having some kind of general context about the property. In as much as you see the amount is listed to be only 5,460, but having that kind of first-hand information is something to get started with. So Civic Stocks, I don't know about much about this website. I have personally not invested in this particular region, but it's something to look at for because of the value of the property in this area. If you are just a starter and you live in this location, And certainly if it's not far away from the city, it could be a potential investment to consider. But again, if you are investing 5,460 plus the 800 or something $50 that we talked about earlier, which is the amount you have to pay upfront as if you are going to bid for this property. And then you also look at other potential costs that you may incur, such as maintenance costs, if you need to fix up the property and other things. You may actually think whether it's worth it. In the long run, you want to see a better return on your investment in as much as you have a low budget, but at least you want to maximize the return on that investment to grow your fund into your real estate journey. I also look at this other source, which is called Source Link Auction. And in the Source Link Auction, I basically look at home auctions in Maryland. You'll find various homes in Maryland. Basically, if you look at this, it looks like a condominium to me. And it's right now going for starting bid of $172,000. Again, I will also take a quick look at this property, things of the streets where this property is located. I may also want to look at the Zillow estimate for this property and other important information that could help me to make decision. That is not a cheap price. That price that is put there, consider how much you may have in your savings and if you probably need some sources. So to me, this is a nice street. It looks like a newer neighborhood, if you like. It seems to be an attractive environment from what I could see on Google Street here. Now, let's take a quick look at the um, Zillow estimates and also the Redfin. If we look at the Zillow estimate here, um, basically the square feet for this property is 1,617, 3 baths, 2 bedrooms, and right here is a townhouse. I expected that. But even at this price, the estimated price is going for 275,600. But remember, the starting bid that we see from here is $172,000. And right here, Zillow is telling us that this property is established price, estimated price to be auction estimated price or established price, if you like, is $275,600. And if we want to look at more details, look at the FHA, the HOA loan fee. The HOA fee is $448 dollars per month. That is quite significant from my point of view. This is something that you may want to double check for this much money in terms of the FHO fee. And then this property was built in 1994 and it's a townhouse. So again, 170 per square feet. It is a good deal. It's a subjective question. From my point of view, possibly, mm, I may possibly consider some other options before I move ahead with this and also look for more details. I will simply just bid for this. What you should have in mind is if you bid for property and then you win the property, especially from council property options, that the options as a result of the property owner not paying taxes, they will come after you once you bid and they will come for the money. So don't just simply bid, and before you bid, be sure that you really want to go ahead with that property and make sure that you have the money because the council will come for the money. And if you go further, you see the other ones. There's also other options here in Maryland, which actually makes me to like this options system here. You could filter the property to either be vacant. I remember if you buy property that are owner occupied, you may be responsible to evacuate the owner from the property before you take over. So that can be very difficult for some people who may not want to incur some legal fees or go through some process of asking those occupants to leave the property. So if that is you, you may possibly want to consider vacant property. And if you click on that, there are only few properties coming up here, which is about 10 property, which are considered to be vacant property. And one other feature that I also noticed about this website for the auction is the property type. So you have the a condominium or townhouse, you have the multifamily land and then the commercial property. So if I look at the commercial property, not even a single one that is currently available for this option. And most of them tends to be residential one. If I look at multifamily, I think there were two properties that were there. One, okay, we have one right now. And then if we look at the single family home, we have a listing, which is about 6 listings that are single family home that you may want to consider. So these are different ways. So if you are in other states, they may not have this type of option. For example, we may say the Denver County may not use this kind of system whereby you could purchase the property right away from the auction. So they have a system which they call the tax lien stakes. Okay, the tax lien stakes. You will need to register to be able to buy property through this means. And one of the things that they will ask you for is going to be um, is going to be your social security number, or they could ask you to use your ITIN number or some other form. So definitely you need to register, and then you buy what we call the tax lien certificate. So instead of this system that is used in many other popular states, you may have a tax lien certificate, and then that certificate might be kept for about 3 years or thereabouts before you actually take the ownership of that property. And again, there are also some conditions and uh, processes and steps that goes from state to state, and even from county to county in some states can be very different. So that is why you need to study this carefully before you go into it as part of your real estate investment journey. Good luck if you are considering going through some of these properties that are sold up in options. They are good deals there to actually grab, and people will tell you they bought property as low as $500 or $1,000 or thereabouts. But do your due diligence, because it might cost you more in the long run. Be sure that that is the environment you may want to live in, or an environment that you could handle a rental property if that is what you are considering.